Bell Hooks shifts it to like, imagine you're hearing this like from other like, professors saying like, oh, I disciplined my wife by like hitting her. Like you would think that there's something wrong with that, or I would hope you would think that there's something wrong with that. And so Bell Hooks like changes what like the narrative, I guess, like of like flips the roles and stuff. And I was thinking there and I was like sitting and I was like, wow, like if you just change and shift it to that from kids to like an adult, like your perspective on it completely changes. But when it's a child, it somehow like seems okay, like, oh, you're doing this because they're gonna grow up to be, I don't know, fantastic adults, and that's why they need to be hit or anything like that. But I really like that section in that book from Bell Hooks, All About Love, and I was like, wow, like Bell Hooks did like an entirely different like perspective and twist to it. And I was like reading it and I was like, wow, like that's crazy. I never saw it like that, but now I see it like that.
Yeah, I feel like no, that's very interesting. You bring up a good point. It makes me it's kind of like a reminder when we talk about these like issues in our culture is that it wasn't always seen this way, how we view kids, right? It's definitely a very Western colonial, definitely very American. Um, how Americans view children is very different than different cultures in the world. Even now, you're in pre-colonial times. I feel like it was kids were just seen more. They were not. I don't want to say valued more because I know we all, not all, but I would like to think that we value kids, but to a certain extent here, it's very conditional, at least in the US. What I'm noticing is when I pull up readings from pre-colonial times and I learn about how indigenous folks viewed and carried just women, like how you were saying, like if you want to treat kids how you do with, women, hold them with the same high regard and respect, right? Is that especially when kids are much, much more fragile, their minds are so fragile, their sensories, like it's just super complex. And so anything you fuck up, your kid's gonna end up in therapy when they're our age. But no, and it's not just that, it shifts and you're molding them, right? And so that's what people forget. I feel like raising a kid, no matter what era or age or in whatever culture, I'm sure it's really, really hard. So I do want to give props to parents, especially single parents, because I came from a single parent household, but and I wasn't the only child, so I know it's very hard, and a lot of times they learn as they go, and they just go with also the resources that they have, because that's another thing that's very crucial and important is when we talk about it takes a tribe, it also takes resources, right? You can have as many people as you need or want, but at the end of the day, you also need financial resources, access to healthcare, and all these different things. But my point is that we are not our generation, because it's very different, but I feel like Americans belittle kids, and that's why, like, when I approach kids and they're like 3 years old and they're just talking super, super smart, super regular, their vocabulary is just like skyrocketing. I'm just like, I look at the parent and I go, you didn't do the goo goo gaga thing, did you? And they're like, nope, I just talk to them regular. I talk to them like a person. So they talk to me back, and they mirror you. And so, obviously don't use big words that are complicated, but don't do the whole mushy goo goo talk, and they'll become smarter. Kids are resilient, as people would say, right? And so that's the one thing, belittling kids. You talk to them like they're stupid or that they won't get it or whatever, and they'll fit that, they'll even believe that and think about that, think of themselves in that matter. So yeah, super crucial. But no, that's good. We'll add that into it, of course. Bell hooks, they are amazing. Let me see, what's another one? I'm trying to think. How did you feel, Anita? Do you feel like your mom kind of talked to you regular and kind of treated you like, okay, this is little Anita, she's 6-7 years old, but did she talk to you regular, or did she kind of like make you feel like you're stupid? Because I know a lot of parents do that. They're like, you're dumb, you don't get it, I'm gonna not include you in a lot of these things.
That's yeah, no, my mom never made me feel stupid. Growing up, I my mom did do the whole goo goo gaga thing when I was little. I know that because she talks about it. Like my dad would talk to me normally, and he didn't like when my mom would talk to me like that. But my mom, like, she would talk to me like that. Um, but I grew up just fine. My mom was very loving. She would hug me all the time. So yeah, wait, what was the question? I totally lost the train,
No,
my
it's
third train
okay.
of thought. What's the
Um,
question?
what even I kind of forgot. What how did you feel as a child, like your relationship with your
Oh,
so like did she you're saying she showed a lot of affection, but
yeah, no, she never made me feel dumb. I
don't.
was,
Yeah.
since I was an only child, I was doing almost everything with my mom, like going out with her friends. Obviously not, just like to brunch and dinners and stuff like that. So I was always included, and I was always included in like the big people's talk. I always like the cheeseman and stuff, so I would like to sit there, or I would play with my toys and pretend I'm playing with my toys, but I was tuning into the conversation. Best believe that. And that's funny because one of my mom's friends tapped into that. She's like, she's not really playing with her toys and she's listening to the conversation. Mom's like, no, I know she's playing with her toys. And she's like, no, she's not. Like, she's listening. So I was around a lot of older people at a very young age. And my mom never made me feel dumb. She just let me be, really. And she hardly ever helped me with my homework. I always was doing it by myself. So I became very independent very early on. But still, I had the help of my mom for a lot of things, of course. But yeah, she never made me feel dumb. And I feel bad for people that do, because I feel like my mom has mentioned that when she was younger, my grandma would make her feel dumb, call her burra or call her names. So, like, in a way, my mom did not want to continue that because she knew how harmful that was. So
Hmm.
she was even breaking cycles with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean that my mom never called me burra, but she'll say pendeja every now and then. Even that kind of stings sometimes because it's like she means that shit. And I'm just like, wow, okay. But I can relate to your mom in the sense where my mother's, well, just to kind of cover the question I had just asked. In my home, my mom didn't, she also pushed for independency. I Even though I had three younger siblings, they were too young to play with. I think when I was like 5 or 6, they were still babies, still crawling, and they just kind of annoyed me. I was at that age where, you just have that 4 year age difference, and so they're very annoying. They get in the way. Sometimes you want to kiss them and hug them and be all over them, but since we were a family of 10 at the time, there was plenty of adults to like smother them with love. And so I really kind of stick to my own toys. I had like a tea set. I really liked Barbies, all that stuff. And so I also kind of kept to myself, but even learning how to like make lemonade, these are like memories that will always be ingrained in my brain, hopefully. In case I ever get dementia. But anyways, making lemonade, and then my hair, learning how to actually do my hair. I think my mom, she really like kind of was like, all right, it's your turn, and then she let me dress myself, and I would wear the weirdest shit ever. Like, I'm talking a cheetah outfit with like leather boots and a skirt, and it was just I look at pictures now and I'm like, holy fuck, why did you let me go to school like that? But she was like, a form of expression is very important, especially at a young age, regardless of gender, but form of expression is very important. It helps them, kind of figure out who they want to be. And so I really appreciate her for giving me that. But where was I going though? We were talking about, generational. One thing that really stood out as well as your mom is that calling names. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, she was very vulgar. And I know because of the way she even would talk to my mom until the day she died. And so sometimes it would rub off on my mom, even though they've they've been separated from each other for ever since I was born, because my mom moved to the US. So over 24 years. And sometimes it would rub off on my mom, and then my mom would kind of speak dirty, and I would be like, have you been talking to grandma for a long time? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, because even though you know your parents love you, it's the vernacular, it's the words they use that are just so like how you're saying burra pendeja, and they just throw out these words like super normal. It's kind of like how our culture with women or femme women, we just say bitch, but like it's bitch, like bitch, you know, it's not, you're not meaning it in that way. So it's kind of like that, but they're throwing all these different words for their kids. And so I don't know. I try and take it with a grain of salt, but I do remember growing up, I didn't really understand it all the way. And so it definitely stung um, as much as I would try and brush it off. And then my mom just kind of stopped speaking that way for a while. But yeah.
But also notice how there's more like, I guess, derogatory words in our language for women than there are for men. Have
Yeah.
you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
I'm
No.
like, why are we hating on women so
I
hard?
think the
Shit.
worst one that I learned was cunt. I
Oh
had
my gosh.
I never used that word until I was like 20. And I only heard a man, surprisingly, I only heard a man use it once or twice, and it was like a high school sweetheart, long story. But and then I looked it up because I was like, what is he saying? Like it's obvious to a woman, so I bet you it's like a female body part. I don't know. And there were times where I came across that term, or I came across women where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's such a, you know, C word. And I never have ever like called a woman the C word to her face. I'm going to hopefully try and never do that. But, you know, in behind closed doors and in privacy, like I will like vent to my friends and be like, oh my God, listen, dude, she's a, you know, bitch. And you just, cause you can't stand this person. And it's usually a Karen, but, you know, but yeah, so many bad words. For me, it was a lot of bad terms for like people who are gay, especially men, gay men in Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of like mariquita was thrown around in my family. And we didn't have any gay people in my family. That's why I was just like, are you just saying this like how men like in English language they throw around pussy, the term pussy, and it's just like, is that how you're saying it? Or they say verga. That's one thing I'm just like, damn, they throw that around all the time. They're like verga this and verga that. And I'm like, okay. So, but what's another one? I did want to cover I think you had mentioned you were like, I was a good kid. And that's another thing that I wanted to cover in this conversation is being a good kid often meant being quote unquote mature. And so there was a tweet that said, we were often praised for not having big feelings, not making big messes, not making a lot of noise. These children were not allowed to feel. So these quote unquote good kids often grew into anxious adults.
I'm dead. I actually do have anxiety though. Funny thing, there's this story, right? So yeah, my mom actually didn't like dirtiness. She's a germaphobe, okay? Yep, there it is. So when I was a baby, crawling and stuff, I remember she always tells us all the time that in the morning she would wake up really early in the morning, and since this was in Mexico, you know, the floor is like tile or like concrete. She had a tile floor, and she would get on her knees and hands, like her, you know, on all fours, and clean the floor with Clorox, literally, so that I could crawl. Like that's how much of a germaphobe my mom is. And she was like that with me even when I was a toddler, like growing up, always. Like I could not touch anything, literally. So much that like her friends even noticed, and they're like, come on now. Like, and so I would get sick all the time because I was not used to germs. And I got asthma and whatnot. But yes, there was this one incident. We went to Palm Springs for like with this tia for some like party, right? And it's out in the desert, it's outside, we're all playing in the dirt and stuff, and I was playing with the kids, and I remember she yelled at me, and the reason why she was yelling at me to come and sit at the table was because she didn't want me to get dirty with dirt. And then she tells a story to me. She's like, and that's when like one of my tias pulled me over, and she was like, you know, just let her play, let her be, like, you know, this is where she should be playing and stuff. So yeah, like there was restrictions to things that I could and couldn't do when it comes to like dirt and stuff. My mom never really let me play with that when I was little. With Lucas, like my little brother,